Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down fascinating new research into bite-sized conversations.
Today, we're diving into a topic that feels more relevant than ever. How do our opinions change? Specifically, how do big, controversial events, social media, and the news all mix together to shape what we think about hot-button issues like immigration?
It's a huge question. One minute, everyone seems to be getting along, and the next, it feels like society is completely polarized. It's easy to blame social media or the news, but how do you actually study that process? You can't exactly put an entire society in a petri dish.
Well, according to a new paper by Deepak Reji at the University of Limerick, maybe you can. A digital petri dish, at least. The paper is called LLM-Agent-based social simulation for attitude diffusion, and it introduces a tool that is essentially a mini society in a computer.
A society in a computer? That sounds like something out of science fiction. Are we talking about The Matrix?
More like The Sims, but for social science. The core idea is something called agent-based modeling, or ABM. It's a method researchers have used for a while. You create a population of digital agents, our Sims, and you give them a simple set of rules for how they behave and interact with each other.
So you might have Agent A and Agent B, and you tell them, if you talk to someone who agrees with you, your own belief gets stronger, and then you just let them loose?
Exactly. You press play and watch what happens. By simulating all these tiny individual interactions, you can see large-scale social patterns emerge, like how an opinion spreads through a network. The slogan for this kind of research is, if you didn't grow it, you didn't explain its emergence.
That's a cool idea, but I can see a problem. In older models, weren't these agents a bit robotic? They were just following simple math equations. Real people are messy, emotional, and they don't just update their opinions with a plus or minus one.
And that is the exact problem this paper tackles. It brings in a new powerful ingredient to make these agents much more human-like, large language models, or LLMs.
Okay, LLMs. That's the technology behind things like ChatGPT, right? The AI that can write emails, poems, and computer code.
The very same. In this new framework called Discourse Simulator, the agents aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are powered by an LLM. This means they can read, reason, and most importantly, they can write their own unique social media posts.
Wow, okay, so you've got these AI-powered agents living in a simulated social network. What exactly did the researcher do with them?
He set up a specific scenario. The simulation creates 100 agents designed to reflect the Irish public's views on immigration. And they aren't just generic agents. Their starting beliefs are based on real-world survey data from Ireland.
So they're not all the same.
Not at all. You have different types. There's a far-right group, a pro-immigration group, a large group of centrists in the middle, and even a media group that acts like journalists. Each agent also gets its own psychological profile. Some are more open to new ideas, some are more likely to conform to their friends' opinions, and some are more emotionally reactive to the news.
This is getting really detailed. So you have this digital society of 100 psychologically profiled AI-powered agents. Then what?
Then you introduce a spark. The simulation starts with a critical event, a large, fictional anti-immigration march in Dublin. This is the event that gets everyone talking. The simulation then runs for 15 virtual days to see how attitudes shift in the aftermath.
And how does a typical day look for one of these agents? Do they just chat with each other?
It's a bit more structured. They follow something called an observe, think, act loop every day. First, they observe. And this is a really cool part. They actually go out and search the live, real-world internet for news articles related to the event.
Wait, not fake news for a fake simulation? They're reading real news?
Real news. So they're getting up-to-date information just like we would. Then they think, based on their personality, their existing beliefs, what their friends have been posting, and what the news they just read, the LLM reasons about what its opinion should be.
And finally, they act. They write a social media post, a short 40-word message that reflects their current stance. That post goes out onto the simulated social network, where their friends can see it and it can influence their thinking for the next day.
So an agent's opinion is being pulled in different directions by the news it reads, by what their peers are saying, and even by its own past posts, which reinforces its beliefs.
Exactly. And the agent's opinions aren't just a single score from -1 to +1. They're broken down into 4 dimensions, whether they see immigration as an economic threat, a cultural threat, a security threat, or a humanitarian issue.
A negative news story about crime might affect their security threat belief, but a story about refugees might affect their humanitarian belief.
That's incredibly nuanced. It really does sound like a digital petri dish for studying society. So, the big question, can this thing predict the future? Can it tell us what public opinion in Ireland will actually be next month?
That's the million-dollar question, and the author is very clear about this. No, this is not a crystal ball. He calls it a theory testing instrument, not a prediction machine.
What's the difference?
A prediction machine is a black box. You put data in, you get a prediction out, but you don't always know why. A theory testing instrument is more like a sandbox for scientists. It allows them to ask what-if questions and understand the mechanics of what's going on.
So you could ask something like, what if the news was 20% more negative for a week? How would that affect the centrists? Or what happens if we make the agents less willing to conform to their peers? Do we still see polarization?
Precisely. You can run hundreds of different experiments, tweaking one variable at a time to see what factors are most important in driving opinion change. The goal isn't to predict the outcome of a single event, but to understand the underlying forces that shape all of these events.
So what's the big takeaway here?
For me, it's that we're entering a new era of social science. By combining these incredibly sophisticated large language models with the classic approach of agent-based modeling, researchers can create far more realistic simulations of society than ever before.
It's a powerful new way to explore some of the most complex and pressing issues we face, from political polarization to the spread of misinformation, all from inside a computer, a digital sandbox to help us understand ourselves.
And hopefully, by understanding these dynamics better, we can have more productive conversations and build healthier societies in the real world.